Pitches on a piano keyboard. Okay, here we have, once again, a picture of the piano keyboard. Remember that the white and black levers that you press down, those are called the piano keys. A piano keyboard has 88 keys. There are 52 white keys and 36 black keys. Now, it's not that important that you know those numbers. I'm just letting you know what they are. Pressing a key on the piano will result in a specific pitch sounding. The technical definition of pitch has to do with the frequency at which an object is vibrating. However, for our purposes, we can think of a pitch as the degree of lowness or highness of a sound. The leftmost key on a piano keyboard produces the lowest pitch, and the pitches get higher as we move to the right along the keyboard. The pitches of the white keys are given letter names of A through G. The pitch of the leftmost key is called A, the next key is B, then C, D, E, F, and G, followed by A again. Okay, so in the picture there, you see that the lowest white key there is A, the next white key is a B, then C, D, E, F, G, and then it goes back to A. This pattern is then repeated all the way up the keyboard. Okay, so we get A through G over and over again, all the way up to the last key, all the way to the right on the keyboard. Once again, we are just looking at the white keys right now. It's worth looking at the black keys when you're trying to understand the location of various notes. For example, we saw previously that to locate a G, we looked at where there is a series of 3 black keys in a row, and the G is the white key that's between the first 2. You can do this kind of analysis for any of the notes that you're interested in. Okay, for example, a C, you would look at first where you have 2 black notes in a row, and the C is right to the left of the leftmost one. And it doesn't matter which C you're looking at, that same pattern will help you to figure out where it is. Now, with this naming convention, notice that there are many notes with the same name. For example, there are 8 notes given a name of A, as we could see highlighted in yellow here. And we've already seen there are 7 notes given a name of G. Once again, I've highlighted those in yellow for you to see. Notes with the same name are said to be in the same pitch class. Sometimes we will want to discuss a specific note within a pitch class. For example, the statement, "Play the note A" on the piano keyboard is not well defined. Right? There are lots of A's. Which A do we mean? If we wish to be more specific, we will use a naming convention called scientific pitch notation, or SPN for short. We have already seen some examples of naming using SPN. For example, if we isolate all 7 G notes on the keyboard, we see that the lowest one is named G1 and the highest is named G7. We say that G1 is in octave 1, G2 is in octave 2, and so on. In general, an octave contains 7 white keys on the piano keyboard and 12 keys altogether, 7 white and 5 black. Notice that if we count the white keys from G1 to G2, including those 2 notes, there are a total of 8 notes. This might give some insight into why we use the word octave. After all, the prefix oct means 8. As another example, if we isolate all 7 F notes on the keyboard, we see that the lowest one is named F1 and the highest is named F7. In SPN, once again, that's an abbreviation for scientific pitch notation, the first octave begins with C, even though the piano keyboard begins with an A. Okay, this might be a little confusing, So let's be careful. The first two white notes on the keyboard are said to be an octave 0 instead of octave 1, right? So that very first note all the way on the left of the piano keyboard is A0, followed by B0. And then the next white note starts octave 1 at C1. It's also worth mentioning that the note C4 has a special name. There's C4 highlighted in red, and that particular note is called middle C. What about the black keys? Black keys are named using sharps and flats. So a sharp, we use this symbol that looks like a hashtag or a pound sign. And for flats, we use a symbol that looks similar to a lowercase b. A sharp tells us to move one key to the right on the piano keyboard. For example, let's start by looking at middle C. This note is highlighted in red. The nearest C sharp is the black key directly to the right of this note. Okay, the C sharp is highlighted in yellow there. If we need to, we can be more specific using scientific pitch notation. Recall that in this notation, middle C is written as C4. It follows that the highlighted yellow note can be written as C sharp 4. A flat tells us to move one key to the left on the piano keyboard. For example, let's start by looking at D4. There it is highlighted in red. The nearest D flat is the black key directly to the left of this note. Okay, there is our D flat highlighted in yellow, and specifically that's D flat 4. If you've been paying attention closely, you might have noticed that we highlighted the same note for D flat 4 as we did for C sharp 4. In other words, these two notes can be played using the same key on the piano keyboard. Therefore, they have the same pitch. There can be more than one note name for the same pitch. We say that C sharp 4 and D flat 4 are enharmonic. There are rules that tell us which name is the correct one to use in any specific situation, but we'll save that for another lesson. It's worth noting that sometimes white keys may be named using sharps or flats. For example, C flat 4 is a white note. It has the same pitch as B3. Right, here we have C4 in red, and C flat 4 is right to the left of it, and the note directly to the left of C4 happens to be a white note, which we usually would call B3, but it's perfectly acceptable to call it C flat 4. Remember that a flat tells us to move one note to the left on the keyboard. Usually this is a black note, but occasionally it can be a white note. Similarly, a sharp tells us to move one note to the right on the keyboard. Once again, it's possible that the next note to the right could be a white note. You may be wondering why we would ever use the name C flat 4 in place of the name B3. There is a reason you would want to do this, but I'll leave that discussion for a later lesson. Okay, it's time to try an exercise. Once again, I strongly recommend that you pause the video now, try this exercise yourself, and then resume the video to check your answers against mine. Okay, I'll assume that you tried this exercise now, and let's go through it. Describe how you can recognize an E on the piano keyboard in relation to the nearby black notes, then highlight E5 on the image of the piano keyboard below. This is the very first note of Elise. Okay, so let's describe how we can recognize the E on the piano keyboard. We'll look for two black notes in a row. And we see that the E's are directly to the right of any pair of black notes next to each other, where there's just the two next to each other. Okay, so these are all the E's going from E1 through E7, and I've highlighted E5 in red there. Okay, use either a sharp or flat to provide another note name for E5. Well, E5 is directly to the left of F5, so F flat 5 would be another name for it. Highlight G sharp 4 on the piano keyboard below and provide another note name for G sharp 4. Okay, here are all the G's, G1 through G7. G sharp 4 is the black note directly to the right of G4. There it is highlighted in yellow. But it's also the black note that's directly to the left of A4, so we could also name it A flat 4. Next, use scientific pitch notation to describe each of the following. Middle C. Okay, here are all the C's going from C1 through C8. Middle C is C4. There it is highlighted in red. The leftmost black key on the piano keyboard, well, there it is highlighted in yellow over there. And it's directly to the right of A0, so we could call it A sharp 0. And it's also directly to the left of B0, so we could call it B flat 0. Okay. The rightmost key on the piano keyboard is C8. And the nearest black key to the left of middle C could be written as A sharp 3 or B flat 3.